Luke hit me up and said, in your opinion, what are your top 5 games of the regular season? If it's the best part of the college football experience, isn't it worth reminiscing? Of course it is. Of course it is. This was the first year on this show that I decided, Jesse and Colin, we need a rating system. And everyone does stars. So let's do Chali. And Chali is the plural of chalice. Just put a little accent on the I. It's cool. It's no big deal. So we went 1 to 5 on the Chali rating system. And I am happy to report to you that out of the games we broke down, so this is not every game that happened this year, the games we talked about on the show, 37 games ended up being ranked 3 Chali or higher. We had 22 games of 4.5 Chali or better. And 3 games ended up being 5 Chali classics. Many were contenders, but only 3 got the distinguished honor of being a 5 Chali classic. We should probably send something to the participants in those games. Although I don't really know that Kirby Smart would appreciate a trophy showing up at his doorstep for a game he lost. But you know what? We'll get to that in a second. So some of the games this year, some of the games ranked 4.5 Chali or better. South Carolina at Clemson. You remember that one? LSU at South Carolina. Bama at Vanderbilt. And if you live in Nashville, you probably wanted that to be 5. Missouri, South Carolina. Oh, no. Oh, Jesse, I see where we're going. Oh, there's a lot of SEC flavor on this. But look, it was a very, very parity-laced conference this year. Georgia at Georgia Tech. Notice, that's the one. That's the point of contention a lot of people have had. Let me get to Georgia, Georgia Tech in a second. I have it posted on my finger right now. South Carolina was the team of the year. Congratulations to Shane Beamer. Just cardiac season. The cardiac Cox, if you will, this year. There's no immunity coming. They had 5 games ranked 3.5 Chali or better. They had 5 of them ranked 3.5 Chali or better. They had 3 at 4.5 Chali or better. And when the dust settles, there's South Carolina right there on the precipice of college football playoff contention. So let me address the Georgia Tech situation. We ran I'll show you the poll in a second. So we ran a poll earlier today, and I was talking about the games of the year, but I did not put Georgia Tech on there because we did not give Georgia Tech 5 Chali. We gave Georgia Tech versus Georgia 4.5 Chali instead of 5. And I'm going to tell you my thinking there. Oh, it was a classic game. It was Friday night. It was a Black Friday game. Anyone who remembers WrestleMania 17, I promise there's a point coming, remembers the main event. And it was Steve Austin versus The Rock. It was in the Astrodome in Houston, 67,925 fans in attendance. My favorite WrestleMania of all time. So, great match. And then you have interference at the end, and you have Vince McMahon come in, and they beat The Rock into a coma with a steel chair, and Austin turns heel, although really does he because the crowd still cheered. The ending sucked. I literally look at it as the turning point in my wrestling fandom. It was never the same to me again. Everyone rejected it creatively. Like it's everybody has talked about it in retrospect and said, whoa, we screwed up that night with the way we booked that match. I watched Georgia Tech versus Georgia. Through regulation, that's a 5 Chali classic. Just like Austin versus Rock is a 5-star classic. Tokyo Dome, Astrodome, don't care. It's a 5 Chali classic. And then the ending happened. Now, in pro wrestling, they control the ending. In college football, they don't, although I've been told otherwise, but they don't. College football's overtime rules suck. So we had 8 overtimes, allegedly, and we ended up alternating 2-point conversion attempts, which is terrible. That's college football's way of Vince McMahon running down the ramp in the Astrodome with a steel chair. It ruined the ending of the game for me. And so I knocked it down to 4.5 Chali. And since it's my ratings, that's just the way it is. That's the bottom line. Because I said so. We have 3 games that were rated 5 Chali this year. So, Colin, do you have the poll that I ran earlier today? I took the 3 games that we ranked 5 Chali classics, and I put it up for a vote, 2024 Game of the Year. Bama beats Georgia 41-34. That ends up winning for Game of the Year. That was not the game I voted for. I voted for Oregon beating Ohio State 32-31. And that same day, Penn State beat USC 33-30. That didn't get but 6.3% of the vote. Let's talk about these for just a second. So Bama beating Georgia 41-34. That was an amazing game. I'm on the sidelines for this game. I am watching, jaw on the ground, koala's mouth hanging open with the leaves in the mouth when Alabama goes up 7-0, 14-0, 21-0, 28-0. It is 30-7 at the half. And yet, at some point in that second half, as fate would have it, Georgia takes the lead. And then Ryan Williams, a child, turns into an alien right in front of everyone. Ryan Williams goes off in this game. Alabama comes back and wins to the point where the game does not include the Sarah McLachlan special. One play ends up being the Sarah McLachlan special, and I have had Director Colin take it upon himself to cue it up. It's the only Sarah McLachlan replay that we've done all year, but let's take ourselves back to that magical night in Tuscaloosa. The Sarah McLachlan special tonight. We saw the birth of a true outright psychopath last night on national TV. 17-year-old, FYI, Ryan Williams there. He goes up after Georgia's just taken the lead, alien maneuver number one. But that's not enough. You got two DBs from the best defense in the country. You throw a second alien maneuver on them. And here's the thing about that. You've already done two things that most humans physically could never hope to do. You break down the sideline. Again, you got two of the best in the country in pursuit, and that bores you. So you figure, I don't need the mouthpiece. In mid-stride, I'm going to pull out the mouthpiece because I won't need it for where I'm going. And I score to put Bama back up like 42 seconds after we lost the lead. And then at 17 years old, knowing full well I wasn't even alive in the late 90s, I start doing the Dirty Bird dance on them in the end zone. That is legal terrorism. In the night where a president of the United States was in the building, we had a legal act of terrorism happen there. Ryan Williams, everything they said he was going to be. Ryan Williams, everything those 5 stars indicated that he would be. Sarah McLachlan, known for rescuing dogs, and now Ryan Williams will be known for doing that to dogs. And for good measure, he changed his profile picture to Michael Vick holding a puppy this morning. One of those teams went on to win the SEC, friends. One of those teams went on to have a first-round bye in the playoffs. It was not the team that won that night. But that game, a 5-Chalai Classic. Also, we go up to Eugene a couple of weeks later. It's week 7. I cannot overemphasize enough how pristine Oregon was this entire weekend. The weather, low 70s. The dew point, 40s maybe? I mean, it was almost put lotion on, kind of humidity. Crystal clear skies. You could see clear to the Pacific Ocean if you got high enough in the press box. The colors changing on the leaves. You had the Oregon green popping against the Ohio State red and white. It was beautiful. And then the game, to me, ends up being the game of the year. This is my number one game of the year. The audience didn't agree. They voted at number 2. It's number 1 for me. Ohio State had a 14-6 lead in this game. That was the biggest lead anyone had. There was never more than a one-possession lead. It was back and forth. Howard and Gabriel both threw for over 300 in this game. You had the controversial ending. For all we know, you had the 2 best teams in the country playing that day. We'll see how it plays out in the postseason. But this right here was one of Ohio State's best games they played all year, and they lost, which just goes to show you what kind of performance level you got from Oregon. I was there Friday. I was around Oregon a lot Friday. They give us pretty good access up there in the team meetings and whatnot. Unbelievable energy around the program, and then to execute, to follow through and execute, just amazing stuff. And the same day, earlier in the day, the 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific game of the week on CBS, Penn State USC. This one doesn't get enough respect. This game was a 5-Chalai Classic. Penn State's down 20-7 at the half. They come back and they win in the Coliseum 33-30. And you may say, who cares? USC was terrible. USC ended up having a terrible record. At this point, USC's coming off a loss. Their back's against the wall. They're at home. They play a really, really good game. And Drew Aller throws for 391 on them. USC outrushed Penn State in this game. Like, they limited Penn State on the ground, and Drew Aller had to come through. Tyler Warren, 17 catches, 224 yards. Remember, this was the game that Penn State was favored by 3.5. And I claimed all week, we got a really good read on this game. I was just really secretly, I was praying after we got off the air that I was right. And the model, I thought, had the game nailed. So we made it a Ramen Noodle Express best bet. But I looked at it and I said, Penn State minus 3.5. I think they're going to win. I think Southern Cal is going to cover. Penn State wins by 3. I have to brag about the Ramen Noodle Express this year when I can. because it wasn't such a banner year for the Ramen Noodle Express. We will rebuild. We will rebuild. But yeah, oh, what a game, man. Those two of those games were on the same day. College football blesses us every season.